The city of Douglasville is in excellent financial condition. On this episode of On the Agenda, we'll give you some examples of why that is the case and look forward to visiting with our finance director as we talk about this.
Hi, my name is Henry Mitchell III, Douglasville's Mayor Pro Tem.
And my name is Rochelle Robinson, Zoning Board Member for the City of Douglasville. You're watching City TV.
The Douglasville City Council meets at City Hall on the first and third Monday nights in each month at 7:30 p.m. We have a legislative work session on the preceding Thursday nights at 7:30 p.m. at City Hall. Those meetings, of course, are open to the public, and you're welcome. We would welcome you to come to any of those meetings. There will be an opportunity at each meeting for citizen comments. Now, if you're unable to come to those meetings, but you want to know what's going on, you will be able to see the key parts of those meetings on City TV. As I mentioned a moment ago, my job as city manager is to implement the policies which are enacted by the mayor and city council, and none of those are more important than in the area of finance. Our finance department is located in City Hall. You may have been in City Hall, and you may have even gone up to one of the windows at the finance department, maybe to pay for a license of some kind, or maybe there's some other financial transaction you have with the city that you would visit our finance department, because the finance department has many responsibilities. Obviously, that's where the revenues collected by the city go and are deposited. The finance department's responsible for working with the mayor and the council and myself on the city budget. The council expects the finance department to do financial projections. We look to the finance department to take care of our insurance programs, to make sure that our accounts are balanced, to pay our bills, to do a number of things in the area of finance. And our front desk at City Hall, the receptionist, is part of the finance department. And today, it's my pleasure to welcome to On the Agenda our finance director, Karin Callan. Karin, it's good to have you with us today.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
You began working with the city back in March of 2001 in a different position. So tell us what attracted you to the city of Douglasville, and what job did you first have with the city?
When I first became employed with the city of Douglasville, my position was the accountant. And the main attraction was the location to my home. I live in Paulding County, and it was a 15-minute drive, and that was very attractive to me at the time.
And of course, about 3 years later, our finance director resigned. And actually at that point, I think we said to you, we need you to kind of hold things together while we decide what we plan to do to hire a new finance director. But we threw you into the fire, as it were. So how did you feel about that challenge of all of a sudden being put in charge of the finance department?
I was excited about the challenge. Bill Epps, the former finance director, he had indicated to me that he would be retiring in the next 5 years, and he was grooming me for that position anyway. So I was very excited.
But when we made you the person in charge of the finance department, it happened to be at a time that the city was in not the best of financial conditions, that we became aware that everything was very tight. In fact, you and I had to work very closely on deciding how we could make sure that we stayed in an appropriate position for paying bills and taking good care of the revenues. Of course, the mayor and the city council, they took some very wise steps to make sure that expenses were being held down. We put a freeze on employment. We put a freeze on salary increases. We made sure that we tried to minimize certain types of expenditures. So you came in at a time that everything really was being in a tight situation. So what did you and the finance department do to make sure that we were able almost to walk that tight wire for a few months till we got in good financial shape again?
Me and my staff monitored the budget very closely on a week-to-week basis. Every purchase that came through was looked at very closely. We implemented a system to where each department head had to provide 3 quotes to prove due diligence on their part in researching the best price, and just communicating with you, the city manager, on any over line items that were over budget. So.
And we got through that. That
did.
was a tough time for everybody. Our employees continued to do a very good job, though it was 2 years before we did any salary increases and basically had a freeze on employment. But we began to get on very good solid ground. In fact, in May of 2005, the mayor and the council, myself, recognized that you had done such a good job in these tough times that we felt like that you were the person to be the finance director now that we were back on our feet. And so you were appointed in May of 2005, and I was delighted with that appointment because I think you had done a very good job. And you've proven to be the right choice because you have been very good in serving as finance director. What do you consider the biggest challenges when you became finance director?
Implementing the new statements on auditing standards and the new GASBs. With the fall of Enron came down stricter guidelines in maintaining the financial records for all business entities. Now the auditors require more of the finance directors and more of the staff. At one time they would actually come out, audit our books, and just hand us the financial report. Now it is my responsibility to do all the closing entries and reconcile our accounts on a monthly basis. And with limited staff, that puts additional workload on everyone, and that's been one of my biggest challenges.
Okay. Well, you know, I've always been very supportive of promoting from within when we have qualified employees, and you're a great example of how we have promoted from within and have gotten some very good staff members as a result of that. Now, I know that you're not a newcomer to this community. In fact, you've been here your entire life, I think. Briefly tell us about where you went to school and a little bit about your family.
Okay. I graduated from Lithia Springs High School in 1989. I graduated from Georgia State University in 1996. My father was born in Lithia Springs, graduated from Douglas County High School in 1957. My husband is a firefighter in Douglas County, and I have a 5-year-old son. Very good.
Well, you know, most people that are watching this program are expecting us now to talk about a bunch of dollar figures and details about budgets and revenue sources. And on a future edition of On the Agenda, we'll have you back and we'll do some of that type of number crunching. But today we've got a couple of other areas that we want to talk about. But first, I want to congratulate you on some recognition that you had recently. I know you were at a city council meeting. Mayor Thompson presented a plaque to you that I know you and your staff are very proud of. So tell us what that was about.
I received an award. It was the Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting. And once our audit is complete and our financial report is done, we send it off to the Governor's Finance Officers Association. They in turn review our financial report and measure it against a certain set of criteria, stricter guidelines that's required above the Governmental Accounting Standards Boards. And if we meet the criteria, then we receive the Award of Excellence.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
And I think that that just shows that the city not only is in very good financial shape, but that the way we keep our records, maintain our records, is also exemplary. Another example of something that's happened recently is our new city audit is out. And of course, our audit year is from July 1 to June 30th. And so the most recent audit year concluded June 30th of 2007. And in that audit, which is an independent audit prepared by the CPA firm of Malden and Jenkins, they said that we were in very sound financial shape. But one of the things that they told us is that there were no findings. Is that a good thing?
That is. That's a very good thing. I was very pleased this year to not have any audit findings. An audit finding is defined as an area of potential control weakness, policy violation, financial misstatement, or other issue identified during the audit. Documentation of all audit findings with supporting documentation will be maintained to reflect the discussion of these findings. However, the City of Douglasville did not have any audit findings this year.
And congratulations on that also. And that's good enough for all of us. But Malden and Jenkins, with the work that they did, looking at our expenditures and our revenues, and what I want you to do at this point is tell us a little bit about how we spend our money.
The city spends about 46% of our total expenses on public safety, which is very usual for a government of our size. The next largest expense is general government, which includes finance, city manager, legal, city clerk, information systems. The third largest is culture and recreation, which comprises about 10% of the total city's expense. And the smallest would be our debt service, which is at 3%, and the judicial running the court system is at 2%.
Okay, thank you very much for that information. And just for our viewing audience, the amount of money that we spent during the last fiscal year was almost $15.7 million, $15.7 million, and this was in the general fund. And the way we generally distinguish between the general fund and the rest of our expenditures is to point out that we have the general fund, and then there are three other funds that are basically self-sustaining. That's our Convention and Visitors Bureau, our Downtown Conference Center, and our sanitation fund. And then, of course, your office, we have the 2002 SPLOSH program that we still are working on. And then in the police department, there's the drug fund that is set up with very special requirements of its expenditures. Now, the general fund revenues that we receive, where do these come from?
The 30% of our total general fund revenues this most recent fiscal year came from sales tax. This was up 3% from the prior year. Fines have decreased 2% from the prior year, representing 6% of our total revenues. And property taxes comprise 21% of our total revenues.
Okay. I want to go back for just a minute on a couple of things with our general fund revenues. That you said that our sales tax is about 30%, our property tax 21%, so that's only half of it. I would think that that puts us in a good financial posture, not to be totally dependent on one revenue stream. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so I know some places depend almost entirely on property taxes, and of course we get only 21% of our revenues from property taxes. In fact, our revenues for the past fiscal year were a little over $18 million. And when you do some math, we said we had spent about 15.7 and we received about 18 million. So obviously we didn't spend all we received, which is good because that lets us put some money aside in case we have some emergency in the future. In fact, I believe the city council and the mayor have set up a special fund in addition to just the regular reserves that you have. Tell us about that special fund that they've set up.
At the end of fiscal year '07, we had a $9.9 million fund balance. Out of that, $2.5 million is what we call an untouchable fund, which we cannot go below that amount unless the council approves, which we have $2.5 million in cash in a CD that we maintain.
Okay, so I think it's safe to say that while the city does have a lot of expenditures, that our revenue stream is strong and the city is in very good financial condition. When we come back in a minute, I want us to take a look at two relatively small revenue streams, but I think there will be two areas that our viewing audience would be interested in. So we'll talk about that when we come back to the next part of On the Agenda.
I have worked in municipal government for many years and am pleased to report the city's strong financial position. With acceptance of this award, I would like to thank you, the mayor, and the council for your commitment.
Let's give Ms. Callan a round of applause and all of her. Congratulations.
Hi, my name is Henry Mitchell III, Douglasville's Mayor Pro Tem.
And my name is Rochelle Robinson, zoning board member for the city of Douglasville. You're watching City TV.
Kitchen, where you sign up 48 hours in advance to come in and make 6 to 12 meals. We have 3 different package options. We can accommodate servings of 2 to 3 people or larger families of 4 to 6. You sign up and pick 6 to 12 meals. We have a menu of 15 items every single month. The menu changes monthly. For those of you who don't want to come in and prepare them, on Tuesdays and Fridays we have what's called a stand-in chef. We make them for you and you just pick them up.
So, what happens to the stuff I put in the recycle bin anyway? So you see, recycling really does make a difference. Will you put this in the recycle bin for Mommy?
Yeah.
Welcome back to this edition of On the Agenda. I'm joined today by Karin Callan, City Finance Director. It's good to have her with us. We were talking earlier about city revenues, and our two largest revenue sources are the sales tax, 30%, and our property tax, 21%, which means, though, that half of our revenues for the general fund come from a variety of other sources. And that's good from a financial health standpoint, not to be dependent upon just one or two sources. And what we want to do in the rest of this edition of On the Agenda is to talk about two of these smaller revenue sources, but I think there will be two that you, the viewers, will find of interest. And the first one we want to talk about is alcohol beverage revenues. And Karin, tell us, what type of taxes do we receive on alcohol beverages?
We receive excise tax from the distributors, and we also receive a pouring tax from the restaurants.
Okay. Now, on our excise tax, I know that's by far the largest amount. I believe that's somewhere like $954,000 that we receive. Can you tell us how much of that comes from the sale of wine, from malt beverages and spirituous liquor? Do you have that information?
Yes, I have 72% of that comes from beer and wine tax, 15% comes from the liquor tax, and 13% comes from pouring tax.
Okay. But when you add all of that up, that's more than $954,000 in the last fiscal year. And of course, that's because the city of Douglasville is a retail trade center with many restaurants. In fact, we have, I believe, 62 restaurants in Douglasville that have an alcohol beverage license. Now, some of those just serve beer and wine. Now, if a restaurant's just going to serve beer and wine, what kind of annual license does it have to pay the city?
That would be a $500 fee for their annual license.
Okay, but then if they serve spirituous liquor, then it's what?
$5,000.
So when you serve mixed drinks, then of course they're paying a much higher license fee. And if you, it's interesting though, the figures that you gave us in terms of the excise taxes, that most of the revenues we receive from excise taxes comes from beer and wine. You know, we do have, of course, a number of grocery stores, convenience stores who do package sale of wine and malt beverage. In fact, I believe we have about 30 of those licenses. Now, also we have several liquor stores. Now, what's the annual license that is paid by, say, a convenience store or chain grocery store and then, say, a liquor store?
A retail convenience store and grocery stores would be the same, beer and wine, $500. And if you wanted to sell liquor, it would be $5,000. Which you can't do at grocery stores or convenience stores.
So the only thing that you find at the convenience stores or grocery stores, a wine and malt beverage. Now, several years ago, the city did provide for Sunday sales. But one of the areas that I want us to talk about in just a minute is that because almost, every few months we have a new restaurant that comes to Douglasville. And there is a procedure that we have to go through, that a restaurant has to go through in order to get a license. Tell me what that procedure is.
Our finance department's role is to process the application. The applicant would come in and meet with our coordinator, Kim Sparks. She would then walk you through the process, schedule the hearings before council. We would need to advertise to the public the hearings. And the finance department would also be here to help the applicant and understand the ordinances.
And then also the police department does background checks to be sure that whoever is the ownership, the agent outlet manager, that they meet criteria. Well, there's another revenue source with our alcohol beverages, of course, that we had touched on, and that, of course, is the what you're describing on the annual licenses. And I believe we get about $331,000 this past year on the licenses that these 62 restaurants and 30 other stores. So we have more than $1 million of our revenues in the general fund that actually are alcohol beverage related. Another area that I want us to talk about as we close deals with licenses and permits. And this is the third largest revenue source that we have for the general fund, almost $2.5 billion. And now most of that is with the business license, the occupational license. So I know that your department recently sent out renewal notices to businesses. So tell us how that works.
We have two types of licenses. We have the business license and we have the alcohol license. The business license we send notices for renewal out starting in October. And they are due by December 31st. And you'll have until March 15th. We give a slight grace period.
Right.
And the same will apply to alcohol licenses as well.
Right. Now with business licenses, this is all the way from the big anchor stores at the mall and places like Kohl's and Walmart, and as well as home occupations. So we've got a number of people who have business licenses to operate small businesses out of their home. We do encourage people, of course, to pay their business licenses on time. The occupational get their new business license so they're not subject to a penalty or anything. Now, there are certain rules that we have to go by. I mean, we couldn't say that we like that particular grocery store, so we're going to charge them one type of business license fee, but this one we don't really like, so we're going to make them pay a lot more. There's some standards that you have to go by. Tell us what those standards are.
They're called the SIC codes, and they're industry codes, which give us a certain tax rate that we are to apply to a certain business. And that is mandated by the federal government.
And while a city such as Douglasville can decide what they charge, we've got a couple of restrictions. That is, not only we can't discriminate against stores of the same type. In other words, you can't discriminate against one department store against the other. But on this SIC code that you've described, you really can't say, well, we want to really make this type of business pay a big business license fee, but we want to let up on those. That SIC code is an entire package deal, isn't it? So that there is a correlation between what businesses will pay. Well, I think that today we've covered a couple of topics that hopefully have been of interest to our viewers, as well as just reminding them that the city is in excellent financial shape. And I know you're working hard to keep us there, the mayor, the council, myself also. But we're delighted to have had you on the agenda today.
You.
And we'll have you back again to where we'll talk maybe some more dollar figures and let people know a little bit more about financial operations in Douglasville.
Making our bagels from scratch. We are making all of our cream cheeses from scratch. We make fresh salads, fresh sandwiches every day. All of our pastries are made in-house, and it's just a fresh concept that we have here. We sell coffees, hot coffees, cappuccinos, lattes, different types of smoothies, and we have a great staff, friendly people, and it's just a great looking store.
Well, I hope today's program has enabled you to gain some better understanding of the financial condition of the city of Douglasville and how a diversified revenue streams really makes this city in a strong financial condition. This is Bill Osmond signing off on this episode of On the Agenda.